Good morning, beloved souls. There are mornings when the sun rises gently, brushing the sky with gold. And there are mornings when clouds gather like unspoken worries at the edge of our hearts. Yet whether the day greets us with calm or with thunder, one sacred truth remains: you are blessed even in a storm. Storms do not come to announce our defeat. They come to reveal our depth. The rain that falls upon your roof is the same rain that nourishes the earth. The wind that rattles your windows is the same wind that teaches the trees to bend without breaking. And so it is with us. When life swirls and howls, when uncertainty knocks at the door of our peace, we must remember that blessing is not the absence of trouble. It is the presence of God within it. This morning prayer is not a plea born of fear. It is a declaration born of faith. It is the steady whisper that says, "Though the clouds gather, I will rise." It is the courageous breath that says, "Though I walk through difficulty, I am not alone." For every storm carries within it a lesson, a strengthening, a sacred reminder that we were built to endure and destined to overcome. So today we do not curse the wind. We do not tremble at the thunder. We stand tall in spirit and say, "I am blessed in the calm. I am blessed in the chaos. I am blessed in the breaking, and I am blessed in the becoming." Let this morning prayer be your anchor and your anthem. Let it be the quiet assurance in your heart that no storm can wash away what God has already written over your life: blessed, favored, loved, and chosen. There is a peculiar tenderness in the way a storm announces itself. The sky does not ask permission to darken. The wind does not consult our calendars before it begins to howl. It simply arrives uninvited, unrestrained, unapologetic. And in its arrival we are faced with the choice to see only the violence of the wind or to search for the quiet blessing hidden in its roar. We are taught from the softness of childhood to associate blessing with ease. We imagine blessing as sunlight spilling across our doorstep, as laughter rising freely from our bellies, as doors swinging open without resistance. We call it blessing when the road is smooth and the journey is swift. But life in its holy wisdom teaches us a deeper language. It whispers that blessing is not confined to comfort. It lives also in the wrestling and the waiting and the weeping. For what is a storm if not a teacher cloaked in thunder? When the winds of difficulty begin to circle our lives, when finances falter, when relationships strain, when illness presses against the fragile borders of our strength, we are tempted to cry out, "Why me?" We measure our faith by the calmness of our circumstances and assume that turbulence is proof of abandonment. Yet the truth stands taller than our fear. Difficulty is not a dismissal from grace. It is often an invitation into greater depth. The rain that floods the streets also feeds the roots hidden beneath the soil. Those roots, unseen and uncelebrated, stretch deeper because of the storm. They learn to anchor themselves more firmly. They discover reservoirs of strength they did not know they possessed. And when the sun returns, and it always returns, the tree stands taller, its leaves greener, its branches wider in their reach. So it is with us. In the difficult seasons of our lives, we are being rooted, we are being stretched, we are being taught how to bend without breaking. There is a blessing in that bending. There is a sacred mercy in discovering that what threatened to undo us has instead refined us. I have known seasons when the sky above my spirit seemed permanently overcast. Days when hope felt like a distant memory and courage required more energy than I believed I had to give. In those moments, blessing did not look like abundance. It looked like survival. It looked like rising from the bed when sorrow begged me to remain. It looked like speaking kindly when bitterness burned at the back of my throat. It looked like choosing faith when fear shouted louder. And that, dear heart, is blessing. Blessing is the strength to stand when standing feels impossible. Blessing is the breath that fills your lungs after a night of silent tears. Blessing is the friend who calls at the precise moment your spirit begins to sink. Blessing is the quiet voice within that says, "Not yet. Your story is not finished." Difficult seasons strip away illusions. They remove the decorations we have hung upon our identities and leave us face to face with our truest selves. In comfort, we may forget who we are. In challenge, we remember. We remember that we are resilient. We remember that we are carried by something greater than circumstance. We remember that our worth is not determined by the weather of our lives. Storms reveal the architecture of our faith. If a house is built upon sand, the rain will expose its weakness. But if it is anchored to a solid foundation, the storm may shake it, yet it will not collapse. In the same way, difficult seasons test the foundation upon which we have built our hope. And when we discover that we are still standing, bruised perhaps, trembling perhaps, but standing nonetheless, we begin to understand the magnitude of the blessing. For there is no testimony without a test. There is no resilience without resistance. There is no triumph without trial. This does not mean we must celebrate pain or pretend that suffering is sweet. Storms are not comfortable. They are loud and disruptive. They interrupt our plans and scatter our expectations like leaves in the wind. It is human to grieve the loss of what we thought would be. It is human to feel the sting of disappointment. But even as tears fall, blessing can be present. Blessing may look like clarity born from confusion. It may look like wisdom carved from heartbreak. It may look like doors closing that were never meant to remain open. In hindsight, we often recognize that what we once called devastation was, in truth, divine protection.
How many times have we mourned an opportunity that slipped through our fingers, only to later discover that its absence saved us from deeper harm? How many times have we resisted change, clinging to familiarity, only to find that the unfamiliar terrain held our greatest growth?
The storm rearranges our landscape, forces us to release what we can no longer carry. And in that releasing, there is blessing. Difficult seasons teach us compassion. When we have walked through rain, we learn not to mock another's umbrella. When we have known hunger of body or of spirit, we become more generous with our bread. Suffering, though unwelcome, softens the heart of the willing. It widens our capacity to love beyond convenience. And is that not a blessing? To emerge from hardship not hardened but human, not bitter but better. Not closed, but open to the shared frailty of us all. There is also a holy intimacy that forms between the soul and God in the storm. When distractions are stripped away and certainty dissolves, we reach for something eternal. We pray not with polished phrases, but with raw honesty. We seek not applause, but assurance. And in that seeking, we often find a closeness more profound than any we have known in seasons of ease. It is in the storm that we discover we are not alone. The thunder may roll, but it does not drown out the whisper of divine presence. The lightning may flash, but it cannot extinguish the light planted within us. We begin to understand that blessing is not the removal of the storm. It is the companionship through it. And when the storm finally passes, as all storms must, we look back and see evidence of grace scattered like jewels across the path we traveled. We see the strength we did not know we carried. We see the courage that rose when called. We see the hands that held us, the prayers that covered us, the quiet miracles that sustained us. We realize that even in the darkest hour we were being kept. So if you find yourself in a difficult season today, do not assume you have been forgotten. Do not measure your worth by the weight of your struggle. Instead, lean into the possibility that beneath the noise of the storm, something sacred is unfolding. Perhaps you are being prepared for a responsibility greater than you imagined. Perhaps your compassion is being cultivated for a calling yet unseen. Perhaps your faith is being strengthened so that one day you may stand before another trembling soul and say with authority born of experience, "You will make it. I did." Blessing is not always gentle. Sometimes it arrives disguised as disruption, but its purpose is steadfast. It shapes, it refines, it reveals. And when the morning comes, and it will come, you will step into the light not as the person who entered the storm, but as someone wiser, steadier, more deeply rooted in truth. You will carry within you the quiet knowledge that you have survived, that you have grown, that you were blessed not only in the sunshine but in the rain. So lift your head, even if the sky is gray. Whisper gratitude, even if your voice trembles. Trust that the same God who paints the rainbow is present in the rainfall. For you are blessed not only after the storm, not only when the clouds part, but even now in the midst of the wind and the waiting. And that blessing, dear heart, is unshakable. The morning arrives without applause. It does not knock loudly upon our doors demanding recognition. It simply unfolds, quiet as a whispered promise, steady as a faithful friend. Before the noise of the world gathers its strength, before responsibilities begin their relentless calling, there exists a sacred space. It is in that space that victory is born. Morning prayer is not merely a ritual of folded hands and closed eyes. It is the deliberate act of aligning one's spirit before aligning one's schedule. It is the choice to seek divine order before facing earthly demands. And in that choice there is power. We often imagine victory as a grand celebration, confetti falling, crowds cheering, obstacles conquered in dramatic fashion. But true victory begins long before the visible triumph. It begins in the stillness. It begins in the quiet surrender of the heart. It begins when we rise before fear has found its footing and declare, "This day belongs to God." When the alarm clock breaks the silence of dawn, we are presented with more than the start of another routine. We are given a fresh canvas. The day has not yet been marked by disappointment. It has not yet been bruised by conflict. It stands before us unformed, waiting for the brushstrokes of our intention. Morning prayer is the first color we choose to paint upon it. To pray in the morning is to anchor the soul before the winds begin to blow. It is to whisper gratitude before grievances have the opportunity to gather. It is to affirm faith before doubt dares to speak its name. In that sacred communion, we remind ourselves that we do not walk into the day alone. There is a quiet courage that forms when we begin with prayer. The world may offer uncertainty, unexpected emails, sudden expenses, difficult conversations, but prayer steadies the pulse. It slows the racing thoughts. It reminds us that challenges may visit, but they do not reign. We do not approach the day as victims of circumstance. We enter it as children of divine promise. Morning prayer is an act of trust. It is trust that even if the path ahead twists and turns, we are guided. It is trust that even if the sky darkens by afternoon, we have already been fortified. It is trust that whatever awaits us has not taken heaven by surprise. In prayer, we lay down our anxieties before they have the chance to grow heavy. We confess our fears before they harden into limitations. We ask for wisdom before decisions demand it. And in doing so, we prepare our spirits for victory, not because the day will be free of struggle, but because we have chosen to meet struggle with strength. There is something transformative about offering the first moments of consciousness to gratitude. When we say, "Thank you for this breath, for this chance, for this sunrise," we shift the posture of our hearts. Gratitude is not blind to difficulty, it simply refuses to be defined by it. In gratitude, we acknowledge that life itself is a gift, and gifts deserve reverence. Morning prayer also sharpens our perspective. It lifts our eyes from the narrow lens of immediate concerns and directs them toward eternal truths. Bills may need to be paid. Deadlines may loom. Relationships may require patience. Yet in prayer we remember that our identity is not confined to these tasks. We are more than our to-do lists. We are more than our titles. We are souls on a journey, sustained by grace. And when that understanding settles within us, we walk differently. We speak differently. We respond differently. Victory is often determined by response rather than circumstance. Two people may face the same storm, yet one emerges bitter while the other grows stronger. What makes the difference? Preparation of the heart. Morning prayer cultivates that preparation. It equips us to respond with patience instead of panic, with faith instead of fear. It is in prayer that we rehearse courage. Before stepping into a challenging meeting, we can declare, "Give me words seasoned with wisdom." Before addressing conflict, we can ask, "Fill me with compassion." Before confronting uncertainty, we can affirm, "Lead me in clarity." These petitions are not signs of weakness, they are acknowledgments of our need for divine partnership. There is humility in prayer, and humility is fertile ground for growth. The day may not unfold according to our carefully crafted plans. Interruptions may arise. Expectations may be overturned. Yet when the foundation of the morning has been laid in prayer, disruptions lose their power to derail us completely. We may stumble, but we do not collapse. We may adjust, but we do not abandon hope. Morning prayer does something else. It reminds us of our purpose. In the quiet conversation with God, we reconnect with the deeper reason we rise each day. We are not merely surviving. We are serving. We are not merely existing. We are evolving. We are not merely enduring. We are contributing to a story larger than ourselves. When we begin the day remembering that our lives carry meaning, even mundane tasks take on dignity. Washing dishes becomes an act of care. Commuting becomes an opportunity for reflection. Work becomes a platform for excellence. Prayer infuses the ordinary with sacred intention, and there is victory in that. Victory is not always a public spectacle. Sometimes it is the private triumph of maintaining integrity when shortcuts tempt us. Sometimes it is the silent achievement of choosing kindness when irritation would be easier. Sometimes it is the unseen endurance of continuing forward when quitting whispers seductively in our ears. Morning prayer strengthens the resolve required for such victories. It whispers to the weary heart, "You are capable." It assures the anxious mind, "You are covered." It encourages the hesitant spirit, "You are called." These affirmations, spoken in the stillness, echo throughout the day. They become shields against discouragement and swords against despair. There is also a rhythm to morning prayer that nourishes consistency. Each dawn offers another opportunity to begin again. Yesterday's failures do not dictate today's potential. Last week's disappointments do not cancel this morning's promise. In prayer we release what was and embrace what can be. This daily renewal is a quiet miracle. To rise, to breathe, to hope once more, these are not small things. They are profound evidences of grace. When we honor them with prayer, we align ourselves with resilience. We choose to believe that each day holds possibility, even if it also holds challenge. Morning prayer cultivates discipline, and discipline fuels victory. It requires intentionality to pause before plunging into productivity. It demands awareness to seek stillness before seeking success. Yet the reward is immeasurable. A heart grounded in prayer is less easily shaken by chaos. And so, as the sun stretches its fingers across the horizon, we stretch our faith toward heaven. We offer our plans, our worries, our dreams. We ask for strength equal to the day's demands. We trust that what we cannot foresee has already been seen by divine eyes. Then we rise, not arrogantly, but assured. Not recklessly, but ready. Not fearfully, but faithfully. For we understand that victory is not reserved for the end of the journey. It is woven into each moment we choose faith over doubt, gratitude over complaint, courage over retreat. It is present in every step taken with prayer as our companion. So let the morning find you whispering hope. Let it discover you declaring peace. Let it witness you aligning your spirit before aligning your schedule. In that sacred beginning, you will have already claimed a triumph that no circumstance can steal. And when the evening falls and you reflect upon the day, its trials, its triumphs, its tender mercies, you will recognize that the tone was set at dawn. Victory began not when the problems disappeared, but when you chose to pray. For in the quiet conversation between your soul and your Creator, the day was anointed with purpose. And that, dear heart, is how champions are made, one faithful morning at a time. Life, my dear, has a way of testing the mettle of the human spirit. It does not announce its lessons with polite invitations or gentle courtesies. No, life often comes to the door like a thief in the night, unexpected, insistent, unrelenting. The storms arrive, sometimes subtle, sometimes savage, and in their presence we discover truths about ourselves that comfort and ease could never reveal. The storm is both adversary and teacher, and those who understand this find in it a sacred resilience. Resilience is not simply endurance. It is not a passive survival. Resilience is an alchemy of the soul, the transformation of hardship into strength, sorrow into wisdom, fear into faith. It is forged in the furnace of challenge, hammered upon the anvil of adversity, and tempered by the steady hands of perseverance. Each trial, each heartbreak, each disappointment is a bell ringing in the cathedral of our character, calling us to attention, reminding us of our capacity to rise. Consider the wind that bends the tree but does not break it. The tree does not resist entirely, for resistance alone would snap its branches, but it leans into the gust, yielding in motion, yet holding firm in root. And so it is with the soul. When the storms of life buffet us, when circumstances seem too great for our small hands to hold, we are called to bend without breaking. We are called to find our footing even when the ground beneath us quakes. And in this bending, this yielding, the storm teaches the art of resilience. There is a certain irony in this truth. The very things we perceive as threats often become the instruments of our strength. The fire that scorches may also purify. The torrent that threatens to drown may also cleanse. The loss that feels unbearable may also awaken new understanding. Spiritual resilience grows not in comfort but in confrontation. It blooms not in still waters but in the rapids that demand our full attention, our full faith. I have seen lives broken by circumstance, by betrayal, by illness, by the harshness of the world. And I have seen those same lives rise again, not merely restored, but transformed. A heart that has known deep grief learns empathy. A soul that has wrestled with doubt learns faith. A spirit that has endured injustice learns justice's true meaning. Storms carve channels in the soul, and through those channels flows a depth of understanding and a strength of character that calm days could never cultivate. We often think of resilience as a solitary achievement, as if one rises alone from the ashes. Yet true spiritual resilience is never purely solitary. It is intertwined with the divine, with the unseen, with the love that whispers to us when all else is silent. It is nurtured in prayer, in reflection, in surrender. When we acknowledge that we are not the sole architects of our endurance, we allow ourselves to draw upon a wellspring greater than our own capacity. The storm becomes a crucible, yes, but it is also a conduit, connecting us to something eternal, something unwavering, something holy. Storms build resilience through repetition. The first trial may shake us, rattle our confidence, tempt despair into our hearts. But subsequent trials, met with the memory of past triumphs, strengthen our resolve. The scars of former storms are not marks of shame. They are medals of perseverance. They remind us, even in the face of new challenges, that we have survived before, and we can survive again. The seasoned soul recognizes that hardship is a cycle, but not a sentence. And in this recognition, courage finds its voice. It is in the small daily storms that spiritual resilience is often honed. The argument that leaves us wounded, the disappointment that clouds our hopes, the burden that presses upon us relentlessly. These are not insignificant. They are the training ground for fortitude. They teach patience, temper humility, and cultivate endurance. To navigate them with grace is to practice the art of resilience, preparing for the greater storms that may come unannounced. And yet, resilience is not merely about holding firm. It is also about transformation. The soul that bends with the storm does not remain the same. Adversity shapes the contours of our inner lives, carving out empathy where hardness might have grown, planting seeds of wisdom where ignorance once held sway. Spiritual resilience is alive, dynamic, and generative. It does not merely endure, it flourishes, even amidst difficulty. I have known people who walked through literal and figurative tempests, and emerged not hardened but humanized, not bitter but broadened. Their eyes held a quiet knowing, their voices carried gentle authority, and their hearts radiated compassion born of trial. Storms, when met with courage and faith, build a resilience that becomes a gift not only to the self but to others. We learn that the endurance of hardship is not a solitary victory, it is a beacon, a testament, a living sermon to those who follow. The process of building resilience is often invisible. The world may not see the hours spent in prayer, the tears shed in silence, the fears confronted in solitude. Yet in those hidden moments the foundation of a powerful spirit is laid. Resilience does not announce itself with fanfare. It grows quietly, steadily, imperceptibly until one day the storms arrive and the soul meets them with a poise that surprises even its owner. Storms also teach humility, and humility strengthens resilience. To recognize our limitations is not weakness, it is clarity. We learn that some things are beyond our control, that some outcomes are not ours to dictate. In surrendering to this truth, we are not defeated, we are freed. Free to focus on what we can shape, free to persist with wisdom, free to rise with integrity. This humility anchors us in storms, preventing pride from leading us to fracture under pressure. There is a rhythm to resilience too, a cadence marked by cycles of struggle and recovery. Just as the sea retreats after a wave, so must we retreat after a challenge to gather strength. And in these intervals we reflect, we recalibrate, we renew our spirit. The storm does not demand unceasing struggle, it demands faithful endurance, punctuated by moments of rest and reflection. In honoring these intervals, spiritual resilience matures, becoming both steadfast and flexible, firm and compassionate, rooted yet adaptable. Furthermore, resilience teaches perspective. Storms remind us that life is neither linear nor predictable. They humble our expectations, challenge our assumptions, and expand our understanding of what it means to live fully. We learn that victory is not always immediate, that progress is often measured in quiet persistence rather than loud achievement, and in learning this we develop a patience that is itself a form of spiritual strength, a strength that allows us to navigate the tempests of life with grace, not bitterness. Spiritual resilience also nurtures courage. Each time we face difficulty and continue forward, courage deepens. It becomes habitual, a muscle exercised and strengthened over time. And with this courage we not only endure, we dare to hope, to love, to dream, to act with integrity even when outcomes are uncertain. Resilience and courage are inseparable companions. One teaches the capacity to withstand, the other teaches the willingness to engage. Together they form the backbone of a life that can weather any storm. And let us not forget the gift of testimony. Those who build spiritual resilience in the storms of life become living witnesses to hope. Their stories inspire, their presence comforts, their voices guide. Every scar, every tear, every moment of surrender becomes a signpost for others who may face similar trials. Resilience, then, is not only personal, it is communal. It is the legacy we leave, the light we carry for those who walk in shadows. To cultivate spiritual resilience, one must embrace the storm with eyes open, with heart willing, and with faith steadfast. It requires acknowledgement of pain, confrontation of fear, and the quiet, persistent work of surrender. It demands trust that even when the world shakes, there is a steadiness beneath. And it promises that the soul, when tempered by trial, becomes something unbreakable, luminous, and enduring. So when the storm arrives, and it will arrive as storms always do, remember this: you are not merely surviving, you are being refined, you are being strengthened, you are being shaped into a vessel capable of holding grace, of bearing hope, of radiating courage. The winds that seek to topple you are teaching you to stand. The rains that threaten to drown you are teaching you to breathe deeper. The lightning that frightens you is teaching you to illuminate the darkness within yourself. Spiritual resilience is the quiet song of the soul, hummed in the presence of chaos. It is the deep breath before the plunge, the lifted hand before the fall, the whispered prayer before the test. It is the unwavering knowing that no matter what comes, no matter how fierce, no matter how relentless, the spirit has the capacity to endure, to rise, and to thrive. And when the storm finally passes, as it always does, the person who has built resilience emerges not just intact but transformed, stronger, wiser, kinder, and more alive to the sacred rhythms of life. They carry within them the knowledge that storms are not punishments, they are teachers, sculptors, and midwives of the soul. Yes, the world may quake, the heavens may roar, and circumstances may press with weight unimaginable. Yet with spiritual resilience the soul stands firm, bending but unbroken, tested but triumphant, forged in fire yet shining with an unquenchable light. Storms build spiritual resilience, dear heart. And resilience is the blessing that allows us not only to survive the storm, but to rise with dignity, grace, and power when the sky clears once more. Fear has a way of creeping in quietly, like a shadow that stretches across the room just before dawn. It whispers in our ears, convincing us that we are too small, too weak, too unworthy to face the challenges that stand before us. It tells us that the storm will consume us, that the unknown is insurmountable, that our strength will fail. And for a moment we may believe it. We may feel the grip of worry tightening around our hearts. But faith, my dear, has the power to transform that fear into a confidence that cannot be shaken. Faith is not the absence of fear. Let us be clear about that. Faith does not promise that the winds will not howl, that the seas will not rise, or that life will unfold exactly as we desire. No, faith is far more radical. Faith is the courageous act of standing tall in the midst of fear, of whispering hope when all seems lost, of lifting your gaze toward the horizon when darkness presses close. Faith is the bridge between trembling and triumph. It is the flame that illuminates the path when the night feels endless. Consider for a moment the child who is afraid to cross the river. The water roars, the current tugs, and the rocks are slippery. Fear is natural. Fear is protective. Yet the child is called forward hand in hand with the parent, guided by trust in what cannot yet be fully seen. That trust, faith, transforms trembling into the courage to step forward. Each footfall becomes a testament to possibility. Each movement across the water is an act of victory over the paralysis of fear. Our lives are full of such rivers. There are moments when we face decisions that feel too heavy, responsibilities that feel too great, circumstances that feel too overwhelming. Fear can convince us to turn back, to shrink, to hide. But faith calls us onward. It reminds us that we are equipped with what we need, that we are not alone, that the presence of God or divine grace accompanies us even when the path is perilous. Confidence born of faith is not arrogant. It is not a loud declaration meant to intimidate or impress. No, it is quiet, steady, unshakable. It is the calm in the storm, the sure step on uneven ground, the deep breath before the leap. It is the voice within that says, I will rise, I can endure. I am more than the fear that threatens me. And the more we practice this faith, the more natural it becomes to trust in the unseen, to act even when the outcome is uncertain, to embrace life fully despite the risks. Fear has many faces. Sometimes it comes dressed as doubt, whispering you are not capable. Sometimes it appears as worry, repeating something terrible will happen. Sometimes it masquerades as hesitation, urging better to wait than to try. And yet faith sees through these disguises. Faith recognizes fear for what it is, a messenger, not a master. Faith understands that fear signals a threshold, a point at which we must choose to lean on our inner resources and on the divine. And in choosing faith, we step across that threshold into confidence, into empowerment, into possibility. There is a sacred courage in this process. It does not happen all at once. It is not an instant miracle. It grows gradually as we practice trusting in something greater than our anxieties. It strengthens with each small victory, speaking a truth when it is difficult, offering compassion when resentment rises, taking a risk when comfort tempts us to remain still. Each act of faith is a brick laid in the foundation of confidence. Each step forward is a rehearsal in courage. Each time we refuse to let fear dictate our actions, we strengthen the sinews of the soul. Fear can paralyze. It can keep us from speaking, from moving, from dreaming. It can make us small, cautious, tentative. But faith enlarges the heart. It expands the mind. It whispers that we are capable of more than we realize, that we are supported, that the storm is not the end of the story. Faith teaches us to take risks that fear would forbid, to embrace uncertainty with hope rather than trepidation, to step forward even when our knees shake and our hearts race. Faith also transforms the way we perceive the world. When fear dominates, we see threats in every shadow, dangers in every opportunity, obstacles in every path. When faith leads, we begin to see possibilities, blessings, and pathways where none seem to exist. Fear narrows our vision, faith widens it. Fear chains us to what is known, faith invites us into what could be. Faith allows us to dream while standing in the rubble of reality, to hope while acknowledging hardship, to act while honoring the unknown. There is a divine alchemy in this transformation. Fear, which once felt heavy and consuming, is turned into energy for growth. Anxiety becomes awareness. Doubt becomes discernment. Hesitation becomes deliberation, and the trembling of the heart becomes a pulse of courage. In this way, faith does not erase fear. It repurposes it. It makes fear a tool rather than a tyrant, a signal rather than a sentence. Consider those who have faced literal storms and emerged stronger. Soldiers in battle, survivors of natural disasters, those who have faced illness, loss, or persecution, all of them have walked with fear as a constant companion. And yet, those who moved forward despite their fear, guided by faith, discovered a reservoir of confidence they had never known. They learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. They discovered that faith transforms trembling into triumph. Faith also transforms fear into confidence through community. We are not meant to bear life's burdens alone. When we join our voices in prayer and worship and mutual support, we draw strength from one another. We witness courage in others and recognize it within ourselves. Fear is contagious, yes, but so too is faith. One heart anchored in trust can lift another from the quicksand of doubt. Confidence grows not only from personal conviction but also from shared assurance, the reminder that we are not solitary travelers on this path. And let us not overlook the power of practice. Faith grows with attention, with consistency, with the repeated act of choosing trust over terror. Each morning we wake and face the day. We decide, consciously or unconsciously, whether fear will dictate our actions or whether faith will. Each challenge met with prayer, reflection, or reliance upon our inner strength fortifies the bridge between fear and confidence. The more we exercise this muscle, the stronger it becomes. Eventually, fear may still knock, but the heart responds with courage and the mind responds with clarity. Faith also teaches patience with the self. Fear often feels like a failure of character, a flaw to be overcome instantly. But faith understands that growth is gradual. Confidence is cultivated over time. Each step forward, each choice to act with trust, each act of courage, no matter how small, accumulates like raindrops filling a reservoir. Slowly, inevitably, the reservoir overflows into boldness, composure, and unshakable assurance. Finally, faith transforms fear into confidence because it reminds us of the ultimate truth. We are not alone. We are not unprotected. We are not without resources. The unseen, the eternal, the divine presence walks with us, carries us, whispers to us, and surrounds us in ways that transcend our understanding. When this truth takes root, confidence becomes inevitable, not because life is without danger, but because our spirit knows it is supported, guided, and held. So, my dear, the next time fear presses close, the next time it whispers that you are inadequate, that the storm is too fierce, that the darkness is too deep, remember this: faith transforms fear. Faith does not make fear disappear, but it changes the way you meet it. It gives your legs courage to move, your hands strength to act, your heart the assurance to rise. Fear becomes a signal, not a sentence. Fear becomes a teacher, not a tyrant. Fear becomes the doorway through which confidence enters. When you stand in that doorway, hand in hand with faith, you will realize something remarkable. You have never been smaller than your fear. You have only been learning how to walk beside it, to learn from it, and ultimately to rise above it. Confidence is not something given, it is something claimed, nurtured, and lived through faith. And once claimed, once nurtured, once lived, it cannot be taken away, not by circumstance, not by opposition, not even by the fiercest storm. Faith transforms fear into confidence, dear heart. It is the alchemy of the soul, the miracle of the human spirit, and the quiet power that allows us to stand unshaken in the winds of life, to speak boldly in the face of doubt, and to move with certainty, knowing that we are held, guided, and equipped for the journey ahead. There is a peculiar kind of power in gratitude, a force so gentle that it is often overlooked, yet so profound that it can transform even the heaviest of hearts. Gratitude does not wait for perfection. It does not ask for calm seas or sunny skies. No, gratitude reaches into the storm, into the winds that howl and the rain that lashes, and finds something to cherish, something to affirm, something to honor. It is in the very act of acknowledging what we have, even amid what we fear, that we unlock a joy that is deeper, more enduring, more unshakable than any fleeting happiness the world can offer. When the storm comes, it arrives without invitation. Life does not pause to allow us to prepare, to brace ourselves, to feel ready. And yet in that very moment of unpreparedness, gratitude offers a lifeline. Gratitude reminds us that we are still breathing, that our hearts still beat, that the world still turns. It whispers that there is still light, however faint, still love, however quiet, still hope, however hidden. And in hearing that whisper, the soul begins to awaken even when the sky above is gray. Gratitude is an act of courage. It requires that we look past pain, that we acknowledge the sacredness of the present even when the present seems unbearable. It does not deny suffering, it does not pretend that the storm is absent, but it chooses nonetheless to see blessings amidst adversity. It recognizes that even in the chaos, life offers gifts: the breath in our lungs, the strength in our bodies, the kindness of a friend, the love that refuses to abandon us. Each acknowledgement becomes a seed, and from that seed grows resilience, hope, and joy. Consider the paradox of gratitude in the storm. When fear, anger, or despair would demand our attention, gratitude intervenes. It does not diminish the difficulty, rather it elevates the spirit above the difficulty. It says, yes, the wind blows, yes, the rain falls, but here within you is a spirit that endures. Here within you is a heart capable of love. Here within this very trial is a gift waiting to be discovered. Gratitude transforms perception. It reframes suffering as opportunity, weakness as potential, struggle as growth. And in that reframing, joy is born, not superficial, not conditional, but profound, radiant, and enduring. I have walked through seasons that seemed endless in their hardship. I have known the ache of loss, the sting of betrayal, the suffocating weight of uncertainty. And in those seasons I discovered that gratitude is not the response of convenience. It is not the gratitude of calm mornings and easy days. It is the gratitude of survival, the gratitude of endurance, the gratitude of a spirit that refuses to be defeated by circumstance. In such gratitude, a joy arises that is not dependent on the world outside, but springs from the world within. Gratitude also teaches humility, and humility is a companion of joy. When we give thanks in the midst of storm, we recognize that life is a gift, that we are not entirely in control, that we are sustained by forces greater than ourselves. This acknowledgement does not diminish us, it enlarges us. It allows us to participate fully in the mystery of existence, to honor both the beauty and the pain, to embrace life with all its complexity. Joy that is born of gratitude is never shallow. It is the joy of a soul that knows both shadow and light, and chooses to see value in both. There is a sacred rhythm in practicing gratitude during hardship. It begins with small steps, noticing the warmth of sunlight through a cracked window, the sound of a loved one's voice, the rhythm of your own heartbeat. It grows with awareness, seeing kindness in strangers, recognizing opportunities hidden in obstacles, acknowledging moments of courage within yourself. And it flourishes when it becomes a deliberate posture of the heart, a way of living that refuses to allow suffering to dominate perception. Gratitude becomes a lens, and through that lens the world transforms. Even storms that seem relentless contain moments that call for recognition. The way the rain glistens on leaves, the way the wind carries the scent of distant flowers, the way a moment of laughter rises from the lips of someone we love. These are small miracles, often unnoticed, yet profoundly sustaining. When we choose to notice, to name them, to honor them, we shift the axis of our attention from despair to wonder, and in that shift, joy grows roots, strong and steadfast, even in the midst of turbulence. Gratitude in the storm is also a declaration of faith. It is an affirmation that despite the chaos, we trust in the underlying goodness of life. We trust that the challenges we face are not the sum total of our story. We trust that we are held by a love that endures beyond the reach of circumstance. This trust, expressed through gratitude, is a radical act. It is a refusal to allow suffering to define us. It is a claim that even amid trial we are capable of recognizing and receiving blessing. And when we claim this blessing, joy inevitably follows. There is also a ripple effect in practicing gratitude. When we express thanks, our hearts expand and our perspective widens. We notice the generosity of others, the beauty of the world, the opportunities to contribute, to serve, to love. Gratitude does not isolate us, it connects us. It reminds us that even when storms rage, we are part of a greater tapestry, threads woven together with care, resilience, and purpose. And in feeling that connection, joy is not merely personal, it becomes communal. Moreover, gratitude teaches patience. It slows the mind, quiets the heart, and allows space for reflection. When we practice gratitude, we learn to wait without despair, to endure without bitterness, to hope without blind insistence. We recognize that storms pass, that seasons change, that the gifts of life unfold in time. Patience born of gratitude is a serene strength, a gentle confidence that no matter how fierce the storm, the soul remains anchored, and joy, however muted, remains accessible. In storms, gratitude can also deepen empathy. When we acknowledge our blessings amid difficulty, we become more aware of the suffering and needs of others. We recognize that life's hardships are universal, that joy and sorrow are intertwined, that we are bound together in our humanity. This awareness fosters compassion, and compassion is itself a source of profound joy. To offer understanding, to extend kindness, to share hope. These acts magnify the joy that gratitude plants within the heart. Gratitude also transforms memory. When we look back on past storms with acknowledgement and thanks, we are not merely recalling pain, we are honoring resilience, growth, and lessons learned. We see how challenges have shaped us, how courage has emerged, how faith has strengthened. We recognize that every trial was not only an obstacle, but also an instrument of transformation. In this reframing, joy is amplified, for we understand that the storms of yesterday contributed to the fullness of today. There is a sacred paradox here. By giving thanks for what is difficult, we discover that joy does not depend on ease. Joy is not the absence of suffering, it is the presence of perspective, of grace, of recognition that life itself is precious. Gratitude unlocks this joy, revealing it not as fleeting happiness, but as a deep, abiding contentment, a luminous awareness that even amid the chaos we are blessed beyond measure. I have witnessed people standing in the midst of loss, fear, and uncertainty, yet their hearts radiate joy. How? They practice gratitude. They notice the hands that help them, the eyes that meet theirs with understanding, the small victories that emerge daily. They acknowledge what is right even as they navigate what is wrong. And in doing so, they reveal a truth the world often forgets: joy is not granted by circumstance. It is cultivated through the deliberate recognition of life's gifts. Gratitude also strengthens faith. When we give thanks during trials, we affirm our trust in the goodness of life and the constancy of divine support. We remind ourselves that even in what we cannot control, we are held. This affirmation builds courage, nurtures hope, and sustains joy. The storm may rage, but gratitude ensures that the soul remains unshaken, aware of blessings even when they are subtle, ready to receive joy even when it comes softly. And so, my dear, when the winds howl and the rain falls, when the world seems unkind and circumstances overwhelming, remember this: gratitude is your lifeline. It is the torch that lights your path, the anchor that steadies your heart, the melody that lifts your spirit. In choosing to notice, to affirm, to bless the moments and the gifts that remain, you unlock a joy that cannot be taken, a joy that endures through every storm, every shadow, every trial. Gratitude in the storm is not a denial of reality. It is a declaration of truth. It is the acknowledgement that even amid hardship we are alive, we are loved, and we are capable of finding beauty, meaning, and grace. It is a practice that transforms pain into perspective, challenge into lesson, and suffering into sacred awareness. And when this joy emerges, it is radiant, steadfast, and unshakable, a light that no storm can extinguish, a song that no hardship can silence, a treasure that endures beyond the reach of fear or loss. So when the sky darkens and the wind rattles your windows and the world seems relentless, take a breath. Look for what remains. Name it, honor it, give thanks. And in that act you will find joy, not superficial, not fleeting, but deep, abiding, and unshakable. Gratitude, even in the storm, unlocks the richest, most enduring joy of all.